get yourself a cup of coffee. Well, good morning. My name is Tom. I come to you from Northern Maine, the Rustic log cabin. Welcome to my shop today. The ice is finally out at the lake that I lake trout fish. So it is time to get this last project before spring done and finished today. What you see here is eel traps. Now, I'm at the shop today, so I'm not going to make any apologies for traffic in the background. That's just the way it is. Sometimes I can do them out on the lake. Sometimes I can do them at the cabin, do these videos. But other times, like today, I get a lot more accomplished if I work here at the shop. So that's what I'm doing. But I also wanted to bring you along for the traps today. I'll show a little bit of building it, but not much. But why? Why am I building eel traps? And why did I get into trapping in general a year ago? A year ago I got my trapper's license. The main reason for that was so that I'd have the ability to trap the Maine black bear, because I like to eat bear meat and we have way too many bears. So for me that was a win-win situation. But the other thing that we have plenty of is American eels. They range somewhere in the area of 3 feet to 4 feet. There is no limit on them. You do have to be a commercial fisherman to trap the American eel. So last year I also got my American eel trapping license. And now what we're building, I built up a few traps last year, got them out, had some success. So this year I'm building up 16 more traps. I want to be able to fish this year with 25 traps. And you know, the minute you start doing a video, out comes every Tom, Dick, and Harry up the road. It never fails. I hate doing videos here at the house just because of the traffic. I moved in here 40 years ago. This was a back road 40 years ago. 15 years ago, the state of Maine took it over and turned it into basically a highway. So we have to deal with a lot more traffic now. Hence the log cabin, and hence Beaver Creek Deer Camp, because I don't like traffic. So anyways, to build one of these traps, you need a 5-gallon bucket. You need to drill it full of holes. The law states they can only be no smaller than a 1/2-inch hole. I've made mine 5/8 because I am going after big eels. I don't want the small ones. I want the biggest eels that I can get my hands on. This is a Home Depot bucket. And what you do, I'll open it up. There's a tool for opening these buckets, and it does work pretty good. Now what I've done, I've drilled a hole here and put in an eye bolt, because when I pull up on the bucket, I want it to pull up with the lid in the upright position. Because if I've got a load of eels in there, I don't want to risk the lid popping open and me losing my eels. So this is a nut and bolt with 2 washers, makes an eye bolt. And in there, I have attached it to a line buoy. Now, for these traps to be legal, you need to have a commercial fishing license, and you also need to label this trap whose it is. Well, what I've done is my regular trapping tags have my name, address, telephone number on them for my you know, trapping of raccoons, coyotes, bears, everything. So I'm going to use that same brass tag on all of these eel traps. And you end up with a number. You have a permanent number forever, is your eel trapping license number. So this is what's called an eel funnel. It's big enough for the eel to swim through, and then it closes so he can't figure out which way to go. You drill the hole with a 4-inch hole saw. And I do it in the bottom of the bucket, and then you use zip ties to tie it into place. You can buy these in the bulk online. I purchased, can't remember, I purchased at least 50 of them. They were like $2 a piece. So that'll give me an eel trap. The other thing that I did, and why am I doing this? Let's get back to why I'm doing this. Well, let's get back to food shortages or the price of food. You know, we might be able to still have plenty of food on the shelf, but how much is it going to cost? Is it going to cost a few dollars, or is it going to cost twice as much? Well, I'm in the camp where I don't like to spend any more than I have to on food, because a lot of food here in the state of Maine, learn how to cook with it, learn how to use it, and I can cook great meals right here at the house, at the cabin, at Beaver Creek with no problems at all. One of the main courses that is really nice for these eels is cooking what's called a eel pot pie. And that's exactly what it sounds like, just like a chicken pot pie, except this is an eel pot pie. And I have a recipe for that. I will share that recipe in future videos, as well as show you how to cook with it. The reason I'm going after eels is there's no limit. That means if I want 100 eels in my canning jars or in my freezer, I can put 100 eels in the freezer, or in the canning jars. That will give me plenty of meals. You could probably get 2 pies out of 1 eel. That's a 9-inch pie. You can get a 9-inch pie out of you can get 2 9-inch pies out of 1 eel, and that, to me, that's a whole lot of eating. It takes me a whole week to eat 2 pies for suppers, and that's if I eat it every night. So that's out of 1 eel, I'm getting 7 days worth of meals if I eat it every night for supper. And I'll have a biscuit with that, or I'll have a cottage cheese or something like that as a side dish. But that's a whole lot of eating. Whether that pie is eel pie or it's meat pie, like bear or moose or deer or beef, whatever you want to turn in there is fine. They both cook up a little bit different. A fish pie is different than a meat pie. And I'm not talking the minced meat pies and all that stuff that the grandmas used to make. I'm talking a meat pie that a man would leave the table satisfied eating, because it's potatoes, carrots, and onions, and peppers, and peas, green beans, corn, everything is inside of that meat pie, as well as little chunks of steak, like you would, I guess, if you went to a restaurant, they'd be called tips. So that's what makes up my meat pie. It's a meat pie that a woodsman will leave the table feeling like he just ate a meal and not a dessert. So then that's the same thing with the fish pie. It is a little bit different the way I like it. I like it with spinach and cream cheese on the bottom. You kind of cook all that together, and you can make that layer as thick as you want, and then you layer the top surface with your fish. Now I'll be using eel. You can use bass. You can use salmon. It's actually a salmon pie recipe that I'm stealing from to get the like if I'm using chunks of bass, or if I'm going to use these eel. If I was using bass, I deep fry them just like you saw me do the nuggets. I deep fry the nuggets and then set them aside. And then when I'm putting my pie together, I'll have you can put them in hot. It don't have to be cool. The same thing with the meat pie. You cook it on the stove in a cast iron frying pan and put everything together hot, and then roll over your pie crust on the top. Shove it in the oven, and 30 minutes later, you've got a hot meat pie or a hot fish pie. So that's my idea about food shortages and the cost of food in the coming future. The other animal that I'm going to be trapping a lot of is the raccoon. Why the raccoon? Another one of them animals that's in the woods. You can catch it by numbers. There's no limit on how many. So I can go out, I can trap a half a dozen a day, or a half a dozen every couple of days, whatever, maybe a dozen. I'm only going to trap what I can take care of. I'm really not trapping for the skin as much as I am trapping for the meat. And the same thing there. I can take that meat, I can turn it into a pie. You can use any meat in these pies. The only thing I do is I soak them in a brine overnight, and I do that with all the meat that goes into my. It's actually the brine that I use is the brine for my when I make jerky, deer jerky, bear jerky, moose jerky, beef jerky. It's the same recipe for jerky, is that I soak my meat in preparation for making a meat pie. So, with the high food prices on their way, possibility of food shortages, this is just one way that I am looking at my table over the next 6 months to 2 years. I really think it is a better plan to be able to refill than to worry about if it's going to be on the shelf in the grocery store. And before we go, I forgot, have a cup of coffee with me.